Section 36 is an important one because it talks about other CBP requirements, carrier cargo manifests. We're not talking about entries here. We're not talking about all the stuff that the importer of record has to do. We're talking about information that the actual carrier, the steamship line, the trucker, the airline, etc., has to provide US CBP in the form of a cargo manifest. Let's jump in. In addition to the entry-specific requirements placed on an importer of record, CBP also requires the carriers to submit information for inbound cargo. Air, ocean, rail, and truck carriers. As we said, the airlines, the steamship lines, trucking companies working between Canada and Mexico, and even rail between Canada and Mexico. Second bullet, the focus on this section is related to the information carriers must present in the form of a cargo manifest. And it is very much the same information that an individual importer will have to present in the form of an entry. Manifests provide information on all of the shippers in a given aircraft or flight, on a given vessel or sailing. As we see in our last bullet, to elaborate on that point, in general terms, cargo manifests provide information on the carrier themselves, voyage or flight number, certainly shipper and consignee information, each and every one, on board a vessel, for example, cargo descriptions, pieces, weight, etc. Lots of people travel via aircraft, and whether they know it or not, there is a passenger manifest of every single person on that flight. Their name, address, etc. It's the same principle. A passenger manifest on a flight and the details on each passenger is analogous to a carrier manifest of all the cargo on a sailing, a flight, a truck, or rail shipment. That's actually a good analogy. In the U.S., carrier cargo manifests are now transmitted electronically. And as we might recall, and we'll definitely see in a moment, the transmission of manifests through ACE is an excellent example of how EDI interfaces, electronic data interchange interfaces, are used to channel information from multiple sources. Who are those sources feeding manifests into ACE? The carriers themselves. But in some instances, especially on air freight consolidations, the forwarder can also transmit information. More on that in just a bit. The goal is to have all manifests, regardless of mode of transport, run through ACE. And that's been a lengthy process that has made lots of progress and will continue to do so. We've seen this slide from the CBP website a couple of times, and it tells us what activities can be executed upon directly through the ACE portal we see on the right, and also into ACE via these EDI interfaces, electronic messages coming from multiple sources into ACE. Needless to say, in this case, we're interested in the manifest component. If we look and see, second down, right from the top, file and import air, ocean, or rail manifest. That's going to get into ACE via an EDI interface. File and import truck manifest. Those are goods coming in from Canada or Mexico. Can be done via both EDI and the ACE portal. And all the way down, as an interesting note, file, export, air, ocean, and rail manifests. That's for export. And as it says here, the pilot is in progress. We're interested in imports. We won't talk about it, but it's an interesting point to make. This is how currently, as of the time of recording of this section, that carriers transmit information to the U.S. government. Let's talk specifically about ocean carrier manifests. For ocean freight shipments, ACE serves as the single window for the transmission of carrier manifests, the steamship lines, known as ACE M1. We can speculate that the M stands for maritime. Really not sure, to be honest. Second bullet, because it is a single window platform, ACE also communicates with other systems that help control the entire import process, not just carrier manifests, but actual entries, and in some instances, the inspection of goods. We see in our sub-bullets, ABI, Automated Broker Interface, which is required for the electronic transmission of entries to customs, and something we talked about and will continue to mention as it relates to the inspection of imported merchandise, the cargo selectivity system, the algorithms in customs software that helps to isolate shipments, entries that should be physically inspected. They all work together and get funneled through ACE, is the point we're making here. Let's finish up with a trade tip. Individual shipments cannot be cleared through US CBP without first being part of a carrier manifest. Yes, the importer of record has certain responsibilities as it relates to submitting an entry. That entry cannot happen if the information on that import isn't found on a carrier manifest. It's just that simple. They both have to be there. No appearance of a shipment on a carrier manifest, the entry isn't going to happen. We've also seen this slide a couple of times, CBP.gov. Now we're looking at its capabilities in a visual sense for ACE and carrier manifests. We won't spend too much time on it because we already have, but we will point out how those manifests work. Starting with number 1, the trade community files data directly to ACE. The trade community being importers, being forwarders, being NVOs, being customs brokers, and definitely being carriers. We've said a couple of times, EDI interfaces can be used as well as the ACE portal directly. That's the 2 arrows we see feeding down there. But we can see import-export manifests there on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, through the ACE portal, is import truck manifests and inbounds. Just 2 quick references to how manifests are transmitted into ACE, either directly or through EDI interfaces. There it is, as big as life, right off of the Customs and Border Protection website. Continuing on with this conversation on ocean carrier manifests, the ocean carrier manifest process begins with the e-filing, through ACE of course, of Customs Form 1302, which we'll take a look at in just 1 second. As we'll see, CF 1302 contains data that includes the vessel name, the ship's nationality, what country it is registered under, a voyage number. Just like an aircraft has a flight number, a ship has a voyage number. The port of discharge in the United States, individual bills of lading number for the shippers on that particular voyage, the shipper consignee info, product descriptions, etc. All the same stuff that will find its way into an entry, but this is the responsibility of the carrier to submit. And needless to say, individual entry information must be consistent with what appears on a cargo manifest for a specific importer. Last bullet, once the manifest is on file, the advantage of ACE is that updates on shipment-specific details like entry, examination, and or release are all transmitted via the single window platform. Individual entries and individual importers that appear on a carrier manifest have to match up. They have to be there, number 1, on the carrier manifest, but they have to match up as well. If they don't, there's going to be a hold put on cargo. Because importing via ocean freight is managed via ACE, US CBP can engage in a number of activities. Here's that tie-in out in the physical and digital world. First of all, using the carrier manifest, CBP can identify shipments for which an entry has not been presented. Ship arrives, cargo's here, manifest had been presented, entry has not been executed upon by the individual importer that appears on a manifest. Customs can also use manifest to place a hold on specific bills of lading, a manifest hold. Third, partner government agencies can also request that specific shipments be placed on hold. And of course, manage inbound movements where containers, for example, are moving from one port to another on a transportation and exportation entry, as we studied in previous sections. Hopefully we can see the link between the carrier manifest that identifies all shipments on a voyage, in the case of ocean, and the link to individual entries and how customs can manage its business by using both sets of information. Let's finish off this section by looking at this Customs Form 1302. And it's pretty intuitive, pretty logical in terms of what information Customs is asking for. Let's start off on the upper right-hand side. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and inward cargo declaration. Inbound, import cargo declaration, specific to maritime transport. We can see the name of the ship, the name of the vessel, the nationality of the ship, where that ship is registered, the IMO number, that stands for the International Maritime Organization, that issues numbers specific to ships, a voyage number, as we said, analogous to a flight number, but of course for maritime shipping, and the page number. How many pages in the manifest? Is this page 1 of 100, for example? 5, the name of the master. That's the master of the vessel. 6, the last foreign port before arriving at the U.S. 7 is the U.S. port of discharge. 8, date of departure from the port of loading at origin. Time of departure from the port of loading using Zulu time. And then from 10 forward, this is individual shipper and consignee information that Customs can use to match up with Customs entries. 10 is the shipper consignee. 11, the BL number of the individual shipment. 12, marks and numbers, container number, and any seal number. 13, that's a description of the goods. 14 and 15 is an either or, which is the gross weight in pounds or kilos, or in 15, the measurement per the HTS, which we talked about in previous sections, can be used. Pairs of shoes as a good example. 16, first port place where carrier takes possession of cargo. And foreign port in 17, where cargo is laden on board. Way back in the day, going back to the 1400s, cargo manifests were used for sailing ships. Needless to say, that was all handwritten. Everything was manual until the age of globalization, EDI, the internet, and certainly, in a modern sense, the use of ACE. This is an electronic form, but a good illustration of the information that must be on the manifest so Customs can conduct its business. We'll stop here, and as we see in our title, we'll come back and talk about air carrier manifests.